Welcome to Filta. My username is Mexicano and I will introduce you to the process of creating, testing, and uploading your filters to the platform. To get started, please follow the steps under the Getting Started section in the Artist Help Center. The link should be down in the description. As of today, you need to have an iPhone X or higher to create filters for Filta. Also make sure that you have artist access, meaning you have an artist pass inside of your crypto wallet. The next step is to install the Unity Hub, and the step after is to install the correct Unity version. As of today, this is the version that you need in order to use Filta inside of Unity, but this can change. You can ignore step number 4 as installing Git is no longer needed. Final step is to download and open the filter template, and this is what we're going to take a look next. Inside of the Unity Hub, click on Open and go to the location in which you save the artist template. You might have to open one folder. If you see these packages, go back and just select this folder. Click on Open, let it load a bit, and here you can confirm that you have the correct version. If you see this, it means that you got everything right and Unity is about to start. Okay, welcome to Unity. If this is your first time using this program, do not worry. I'm only going to cover what is needed for us to create our filters. I'm going to share some tips here and there, but if you are experienced in this program, you already know what to do. You can create your own workflow. The first thing I want to do, in my case, my window is not maximized. I can still see a bit of my background, so I just need to make sure to maximize my window. Again, to confirm that you have everything right, on the Unity menu, we can see that we have the artist template version, that we have the Unity version, and you should be able to see the Filta and the Filta hotkey menu. The Filter menu, we can see that we have the artist panel, we have the asset summary, we can load the default editor layout. You can also have access to the documentation, you can log out, and you can also have some other features that might be useful later. On the next menu, we have the Filter hotkeys if you want to use those as shortcuts to activate, for example, the simulator, or toggle the face visualizer. To get things started, go to the filter window and then select this artist panel dockable. As you can see, it gives us this window that we can move around, and what I like to do is grab it from this filter artist panel. You can see that this is a tab. I'm going to click and drag from here and drag it to the right of the inspector. We can also see that there is a new version of the plugin available, so always make sure that you get the latest plugin version. To get access to the filter tools, we have to request a login. Also make sure that if you want to stay logged in, that you check the box, and then you can press on request login. This is going to give you a remote login code which you have to type inside of the login page. So now we can click on this remote login page button. In my case, it auto detected my code, so if it doesn't do this for you, make sure to type the code and it will grant you access. Once all of this is ready, we can start creating our first filter scene. I'm going to name mine filter 1 and then press on create filter.
Meet Gesundheit, one of the developers at Filta. If you see him, it means that you have done everything right and you're ready to get started.
Let's go back to the artist panel and look at what's next. So now we can see that you can choose a filter type. So for example, I can create a face filter, a body filter, or a combination. It's going to prompt you that switching from a face filter to a body filter is going to delete all of the work that we've done for the face filter. In this case, I'm going to continue, but you can click on cancel if you don't need this. And from here, you can see that you can select either a body or a face filter and just toggle whenever you're working on either. The next thing that we see is the simulator. You can pause, stop, and reset the simulator, and you can also show the face mesh visualizer temporarily. This is a 3D reference of what the face is going to look like whenever the program, whenever Unity, whenever Filta is going to detect it. Okay, so now let's take a look at the vertex trackers. If we change the view to shaded wireframe, you're going to see that the numbers are associated with the nearest vertex of this model. This is going to be helpful whenever you want to track, for example, a lip earring in the lower lip area. And the way that this works is I'm going to get this vertex tracker, for example, ID 26. I'm going to type in the index and then hit on create. We can now go to the hierarchy tab and see that we have created a new vertex tracker index under the vertices inside of the face tracker object. If we click on the index, you can see that this is just a placeholder for us to make anything follow this tracker. So for example, I'm going to create a sphere. It's going to be huge, but I can just scale it down to a size of a piece of metal, to a piercing. I'm going to hide the vertex index for now, and I am going to create another sphere, but now I'm going to make it a child of the face tracker simply. You can already see that it's not going to start in there, so I have to scale it down, but also position it to where I want it to be. To see why this is a cool feature, I can play the simulator, and I'm going to pause it right when the character opens their mouth. Right there. So what you're seeing is that the sphere is actually going to stick to the lower lip portion, and the sphere that is floating, even though it looked like it was going to be attached to the lower lip, is not, because it is not tracking to anything. The next thing that we see is to create a face mesh. We do have a face mesh, but it's only the face mesh visualizer. This is only to give you a quick reference of what the face is going to be, but if I hide it, this is not going to show in your filter. If you want to show the face mesh in your filter, you have to create a new face mesh. And then the last things inside of the simulator tab, we see the extra settings. So you can reset the filter when the user starts recording. This is, for example, if you have some type of animation and you want the animation to start as soon as the user starts recording. The other thing is that you can start the environmental lighting estimation on or off and default. The next thing I'm going to do is create another filter. I'm going to call it filter 2. I am going to save this, and this is so we can now take a look at the project tab. I have the assets folder selected, and here we can see that we have filters, template, and useful stuff. Inside of the filters folder, you're going to find both of those filters that I created. You can open that scene simply by double clicking on it, and it's going to open the filter that you selected. Right now it's set by default to body, but you can just go back to the face. In my case, I just want to select, for example, the face tracker, and I'm going to press the letter F so I can focus back to the face tracker. I'm going to stop the simulator, and what I recommend that you do here in the project tab is that you right click and you create a new folder, and then you name it accordingly. For example, I like to keep things organized and have my filters each on their own folder, and this is because once I go inside of the folder, I can drop all my textures, all my 3D models inside of here instead of having everything spread out. Okay, now let's take a look at how to create materials and start to apply them to our scene. Right click on any empty space and then go to create, and let's go down to material. Now what I can do to apply the material to the face is simply left click and drag it onto the scene. I can click on the material, and now let's go to the inspector. The first thing that we have is the shader, and you should know that we are using and we have to use the universal render pipeline. You can click and open the menu if you want to find more shaders. Here the universal render pipeline. Here is the lid that comes by default. The following things are what you can change based on how this shader was built. So you can change the mode from specular to metallic. You can change the surface type, the render type. These are the surface inputs. So this is where you change your color. You can add a texture, change the metallic map, etc. We're not going to see the detailed inputs nor the advanced options for now, and in most cases this is everything that you're going to need. If you need to have something more specific and custom made, this is where we can start creating what is called a shader graph. Go to create, go to shader graph, remember URP, universal render pipeline, and I'm going to create a new lit shader graph. I can go down here and name it SG_test material. You can double click on it or press open shader editor, and this is where you can go wild and customize your own shaders in a very visual way. You have a blackboard where you can create specific variables and the inputs that you're going to see here in a second. You have the graph inspector, which are just the settings of what you create, of what you select here inside of the editor. And then you have a main preview for you to see how the material is going to look like. And just for a quick example, I'm going to create a new color input, name it color, that's fine. Drag it into the scene, and I'm going to attach it to the base color. I can go ahead and save the asset, go back and select my test material, and under the shader, I'm going to find it here on the shader graphs. We named it SG test material. We can select it here, go back into the scene tab, and then we can see that this is the shader that we created. We created a color variable so we can change the color in here. So now that we transition between the scene and the graph, we can see that we also have a game view. One thing that you can do is go to Filta and click on Load Default Editor Layout. Here we can see that the Game tab has been docked to the right to give you a closer representation of what this is going to look inside of your phone, inside of the app. Sometimes my inspector gets really long. This is why I like to have the filter to the right of the inspector, just to have all of the details that I need to see. Again, it started as a body, but that's okay. We can go back to the face filter. We can select the filter, face tracker, press F, and then we're back to being focused. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to create your own particle system. The same way you create everything else, right click, create, and let's go down to Visual Effects, Visual Effect Graph. You can just name it VFX, _, test. I'm going to call mine particles. And for you to see it, you have to drag it onto the scene. I'm going to make it a child of the face tracker just so it follows the face wherever it moves. And we can now see that this particle system is emitting particles. This is just the default particle system. We can double click it just like the shader graph and open it up. And in here, we have a similar setup as the shader graph. We have a blackboard, and then we have our particle system. This is just an introduction, but let's go quickly through some of the things that you can change right away. Starting with the count rate. So we can change it from 16 to something really crazy like 5,000. If you do not see the changes, make sure to click on save. And because we have a capacity limit of 32, I have to increase it to match the rate. Now we have a lot of particles and we need to decrease the size to be able to see at least some of them. So I'm going to scroll down. I am using my middle mouse button to click and scroll down and move down. I'm going to change the main texture of this particles, click on the circle, and I'm going to type particle, and I'm going to select this default particle. I'm going to now change the blending mode from alpha. Let's try something like alpha pre-multiplied. The particles are still huge, so now I have to change the size. So right now is to change the size over the lifespan of this particle. I want to give him a uniform size, so I can just simply deactivate this component, or I can just click and delete it. And in this area, I can click here, for example, in the output particle quad to make sure that I am selecting this output particle quad. Click to select, press space to create a new node, and I'm just going to type set size, and this is going to give it a uniform size. Right now is 0.1. Let's give it something like 0.001. Make sure to save it. Now we can kind of see the particles. They might be too small. Let's try something like 0.1. Particle systems are really powerful and can get a bit overwhelming, but they do not have to be. They actually come with a couple of presets for you to start. So I'm going to select this whole system, delete. Now I can right click anywhere on the scene, create the node, and let's go into system. And here are some templates for you to start with. Let's start with something like simple heads and trails. And in here you can see how everything is being built. You can change the rate again, you can change the capacity, and all of these settings to help you create what you really need from a particle system. At the end of the video, I'm going to show you where you can find more resources if you need a more complex particle system or if you need more information about them. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to use a script machine component to create some type of interaction. For example, I'm going to create a cube to follow the head, and whenever the user opens the mouth, the cube is going to grow, and whenever it closes the mouth, it's going to shrink. I'm going to right click on face tracker, create a 3D object like we did before, select cube. I will make it smaller, just enough to fit the head. Here I have the reference, that is fine. I am going to give it a bit of rotation just to not have like a default cube. That's okay. Another quick tip for you. So right now, if you want to change the axis, I don't want to control it according to the object axis. I want to control it according to the world axis. We have here this pivot point. Here you can change it from global, which is what I want, to just go up and down in the world. And here you can go back to the local. And now with the cube selected under the hierarchy tab, let's go to the inspector tab to see the details of this cube. And to add a script machine, simply go to add component and let's type script. You can see here script machine, select it. We are going to create a script machine graph, but I want it to be embedded into this object. So here I can give it a title. You can also give it a summary of more detail. But now it's created and I can go to edit graph. So now we have the script graph, and I just want to make space for it just so we can see some of this code. More things to learn, but again, I'm just going to show you what you need for now. So we can delete these two events. I'm going to right click the same way that you create notes, but we're going to create an event. Let's go to the filter folder, and I want to add a mouth closed and a mouth open. We want the cube to grow whenever the mouth opens, so hover over the arrow, not the green one of the event, but this one, this yellow one right here. Click and drag, and let's find a new set scale, and we want to change the transform of the local scale. It knows that this is the cube because we created a component inside of it. So whenever the mouth opens, change the local scale of this cube. And for now, the default, let's see what it is. It is going to change the scale to this number. So right now it's all on 0. Make sure to have the same size as the initial state. So this is my default state. I do not want whenever the mouth opens to go to 0 and disappear. You might want that for some specific things. For right now, copy this, paste it. And then I can select this node, Control D, and it's going to duplicate it. And now if I want to make it a bit bigger, let's say I can go back into the scene. Let me test it out. I want it to grow not too much. That is fine. Let's copy this value, go into the script graph, and then just paste it here. I do want to scale it back to my default, so I can just copy this value. Make sure that you click on the link to have all of the scales constrained to the same. So if I change it on one of them, it's going to change it on the rest. We can play the simulation, but it is just the simulation. We have to actually play the game, even though it's under the game tab and it shows that it's moving. We have to go and play the actual game. This is how you do it inside of a game engine like Unity. So let's play the game. I moved the graph to the bottom so we can see clearly when things get triggered. And I have also set this to wireframe so we can see whenever the mouth opens, what's going to trigger. So we can see it here in the graph. Mouth is going to open. It sets this local scale. And then whenever the mouth closes, it's going to set back to the original scale. A really important thing to know is that even though we can change the values while we are inside of the play mode, for example, I want to make the local scale to something like 0.5. I just want the cube to be bigger. Maybe that's a bit too much, but I can see the changes here inside of the game while I'm playing the game. If I then stop the game, you will see that the values are set to whatever they were before I play the game, so none of that is going to be saved. Any of these numbers that you change throughout any of the components, any things that you checked, there might not be saved whenever you exit the play mode. The environmental lighting estimation might go off, so make sure that you select it if you see a change in color. And finally, for you to upload this, we can go to the uploader tab. You will see your collection being displayed of all the filters that you're going to create. But to create a new one, let's go to create new filter upload. You give it a name, filter 1, and simply go to upload new filter to filter. In my case, because I am using the script graph, this automatically creates a visual scripting scene variable. So if you are using scene variables and you want them to be used inside of the game, make sure to make them a child of the filter prefab. I don't think they're a child right now, and I don't need them right now, so I can just continue. We can see at the bottom that it is processing, that it is giving you a queue number, upload successful, it is processing now. And once it is completed, you're gonna be able to see this message, success, and then you can click on OK. You can now go into the application, and when you go into the artist tab, the icon might be a little bit different now or in the future. You're going to be able to see your drafts of the filters that you created. Simply tap on it and then you can try it on. If you make any changes, for example, want to change the color, all you have to do is select to filter in your collection and then click on update your filter. And finally, if you're ready to publish, simply go to the publishing page and then you can follow the steps for publishing your filter, aka creating your NFT. If you made it all the way to this section of the video, I want to show you one more feature. This is another one of my favorites, and it's how to create a glowing material. For example, we're going to try how to make the eyes glow. Let's go down to the project tab, and I'm going to create another project tab. Because what I like to do, let me put it next to it. What I like to do is have two of them, one with the filters, useful stuff ready to go. Let me actually change the way that we see these. And the other folder with just the actual filter that I'm working on, just so I don't have to click in, go inside of folders, get out. You can just duplicate these tabs and have one for whatever you need. In this folder, you're gonna find things like a background replacement material, background body replacement, eyeball mesh, face texture alpha mask, face texture guide, head mesh, a transparent material, and a transparent material with the shadow receiver. To make the eyes glow, I'm going to drag the eyeball mesh inside of the left eye tracker as well as the right eye tracker. I'll go back to my project and my filter and then create a new material, apply it to the eyes. And to activate the emission of this material, I simply select the material, go to the inspector, and activate the emission box. I then have access to the emission map. I can just give it a color. And what's important here is to increase the intensity of this material. For now, let me put it on something like 5. And actually, let me give it a color. Maybe a blue can look a bit better, that's okay. And for us to see the glow, we need what is called a post-processing volume. To do this, go into the filter prefab. I'm going to right click and create a new empty. I'm just going to name it post. Make sure it's selected, go to the inspector, and let's look for a volume component. The next step is to create a new volume profile. You can just click on new. And now I have to create a new override. Go to post-processing, and in this case, I want to create a bloom, but you do have a lot of other effects that you can play around with. To start with, I only want to select the first 3 checkbox. I want the threshold, the intensity, and the scatter. And I'm going to increase intensity to 1. If you notice, I need to play with the threshold because also the background scene, it's giving it a bloom. So if I make the threshold higher, it's going to make only the eyes glow and not the background. An issue that I am having is if I go to my material of the eye and I look at the emission map, it's set pretty high. It's set to 7.5. If I cannot see the bloom, if you cannot see the glow happening, make sure to go into edit, go to project settings, go under the quality section and make sure that the render pipeline asset that you have is selected. So let's select the universal render pipeline, double click, continue. And now you should be able to see that glow. So if I go into my material again, and if I play with the intensity, you're going to be able to see how this glow is. It's just looking really good. You can control the intensity through here. You can play with the different types of glow, making the base map white or black, depending on what you're looking for. And everything else, you can change it here from the post. So you can increase the intensity from here as well. Play with the threshold, whatever you need. The last thing I want to show you is where you can find the tutorials, the downloadable examples, and then the 3D resources. Here you can find, for example, Filta specific tutorials, just general Unity information, post-processing, a bit more into the shader graph, the visual scripting that we saw, if you need help with Claude, visual effects, physics. And if you have even more questions or need special support, feel free to go to the Get Filta website, go under contact, and here you can join the Discord. And inside of the Discord, I really recommend that you start just like going through the channels, interacting with the people. Go to the introduction channel, and as you can see, Chris Horn, the creator themselves, are just coming in here and just saying hi to everybody that comes in. You can have a conversation with the creator themselves. If you're an artist and you need help, go to the Artist Council. If you need support, everything that you need, you're going to be able to just do it a bit faster inside of the Discord. Once again, welcome to Filta, and I cannot wait to see and wear your creations. So until then, I'll see you soon.